Hi everyone and welcome to this coffee break extra top-up. I haven't really thought of a name for this.
Maybe a refill.
Maybe a refill, yeah, that's a good idea. So we're recording this basically as a sort of midway point through our time here at MMS 2017. Sort of let people know what we've seen, what we've been up to, and kind of get a bit of a recap. So started off, since this is a coffee break series, we recorded a coffee break
at the beginning of the week?
Yeah, we did. It was excellent. We had a lot of interesting guests on there.
Yeah, I mean, that was great. Great way to start the week. So we had Cameron Fuller, MVP, Natasha Hale, MVP, Nathan Foreman from a company called CH Robinson, who's presenting this week on some really, really interesting stuff, and hopefully he'll make that available on his blog, and sort of will share that on a coffee break going forward. And Sean Williams, Squared Up customer, who did an awesome demo yesterday, and we'll sort of talk about that in a second. But that was a great way to kick off the week, certainly.
Yeah, it was good, wasn't it? I mean, I think certainly as a recap, these sessions aren't being recorded here as well, so that's a great way. If you haven't watched that coffee break yet, go back and have a look, because we give a taste of what's going on and kind of maybe let you sort of be part of the process even if you're not attending. So that was us. Then we had there was a good session we went to on sort of SCOM 2016 upgrade.
Yeah, so Bob Cornelissen and Natasha Hale did a session around SCOM 2016. I guess most people probably are already familiar with what features come with 2016, so in terms of kind of content, there wasn't necessarily anything new and surprising there. I attended that. I think the thing that stood out for me that I wasn't aware of was the agent initiated maintenance mode. So you can initiate maintenance mode for any server actually from the server itself. Now, I think I was aware of the PowerShell, but I wasn't aware of how it worked, which is that PowerShell simply puts in a registry key, and then that registry key is picked up every 5 minutes and automatically then puts the server into maintenance mode. And I guess that got me thinking about whether you can just then manipulate those keys directly, and actually, manipulating registry key directly is much simpler in some ways than running a bit of PowerShell. So if you're wanting to sort of script some maintenance, perhaps perform an update or a roll-up, then you actually incorporate maintenance mode as part of that script, and maybe even sort of manipulate that registry key or sort of check the presence of that registry key. So that's something I'm going to be checking out in our labs in 2016 and just see exactly what those registry keys can do, and maybe there's some other things we can do with those registry keys.
Yeah, I think Natasha mentioned the performance is much better in 2016 as well, so it's definitely worth playing around with that.
Yep.
I went to a session from Nathan Foreman, which is basically all about being, so if you're new to SCOM.
And that had a great title, right?
Yeah, it was Quick and Dirty SCOM Primer for those being thrown in the deep end of monitoring, which is quite a mouthful to say. But actually, a couple of things that impressed me about it. One, Nathan was sort of talking about sort of if you're new to SCOM, this is what you have to know to do things sort of the right way. So not necessarily the fastest way, but this is how you're likely to sort of get started with it with a good footing.
Yep.
And then he's doing that as a two-parter. So on tomorrow's session, which I'll go to as well, this is sort of like let's just do it fast and just get something working kind of way. So that would be sort of interesting to see how we contrast the two of those. The other thing that was quite interesting, I thought, was that the attendance was actually really high. The room was packed, and quite a few people went there. And that kind of just displays that people are still picking up SCOM. They're still new to SCOM.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that probably has been the best attended SCOM session at MMS. And MMS splits across Config Manager and SCOM and a number of other sort of related technologies like PowerShell. So there's a sort of a mix out there. Probably about a quarter or a third is sort of a SCOM data center side of things. But you're right. I think that's probably one of the best attended SCOM sessions, which is a great sign that you've got 50 odd people who are here to learn about SCOM and are maybe intending to deploy SCOM. I've certainly had a few conversations with people who they have the system center licenses. They're ready to go with SCOM. So plenty of life and new interest in it.
Exactly. As long as people are still picking up SCOM, Microsoft are going to continue to support it. Vendors are going to continue to build things. We are going to continue to build it as long as SCOM is out there. So it's definitely a sign of good life in the product.
So I guess the SCOM sessions, probably for most of the people listening, there's not necessarily anything kind of new there. The real, I think, really new news, the really sort of exciting new announcement here was around OMS. And I think Cameron mentioned that on the coffee break webinar we did earlier in the week.
Yeah, very subtly alluded to it by
saying
nice
Kusto. A nice teaser. So I don't know whether anyone has looked that up. We've sort of put some slides together to accompany this recording and sort of give some links where we can. So the big news is that OMS is moving to a new big data platform. So underpinning OMS, they're actually switching out what they were using previously and moving to a new platform called Kusto, Kusto, and that's internally developed by Microsoft. It's actually the platform that's used by App Insights.
Right.
So essentially, OMS and App Insights will be sharing the same platform. What that means from sort of an OMS user perspective, a consumer perspective, is that the query language is changing. So OMS is moving over to a new platform, and what comes with that is a new query language. Brian Wren did some really, really impressive demos on top of that. I guess I would sort of call it, sort of describe it as something like SQL Server Management Studio. So fire up sort of SQL queries, and you can do pretty much anything you want, but sort of think think of that, but sort of brought into the 21st century. So you just have a massive amount of data. You've got an online query language, query sort of studio, and you can perform some amazing queries against all of that data. So that's really exciting. I think what's quite exciting is I haven't seen anything about that outside of this conference. So from my point of view, I think that's sort of the first
kind of breaking news.
I've seen it sort of publicly announced. I don't think there's much about it online, so if you do search Kusto, you'll probably see some references to App Insights, but not MMS. So that was sort of announced and talked about sort of openly here at MMS. I presume there's a lot more news to come from that.
Definitely. So then there was also at lunch, there was a Nerds of a Feather, which is Birds of a Feather session, but they're being called Nerds of a Feather here.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's the sort of big bit about one of these conferences, which is there's the content, which, I mean, here there has been, as far as I've seen, no marketing content. It is all real deep dive technical content delivered by the people who really know what they're talking about. But I guess the other sort of really big side of this conference is the community and the sort of social aspect. Nerds of a Feather. I went along to that. That was really interesting. I think it's a shame that these sessions aren't better attended, because you go there and you always come away with a new bit of knowledge, something you didn't know, or a problem solved. So there are sort of few topics raised there around SCOM. One was around gateway chaining, something I'd never even kind of considered before. So how many gateways can you sort of chain up? So a gateway's talking to a gateway before it talks to a management server. Another one I think was a really interesting question was around the scalability of SQL monitoring. So a financial customer, was running SCOM monitoring on their SQL boxes, but on boxes that had so many databases that actually the PowerShell scripts that were collecting data for each database were starting to really load the server, because it's having to run that PowerShell script 100 times over once for each database. So questions there about how you can consolidate, how you can overcome that, and really sort of, I guess, the advice coming out was, at some point, the monitoring you get out of the box from either a vendor management pack or from Microsoft is going to have some limits. If you do have maybe some exceptional cases, then you're perhaps going to have to look at your own scripting there to sort of perform that monitoring in a more sort of specialised and scalable way.
Right, and I think even if you don't necessarily have like a problem you want to solve going to these sessions, like we like to think of ourselves in sort of IT as being like unique. Everyone has the unique problem. We're a really weird organisation. But actually, in reality, there's someone else there who works in the same industry as you. You're like, oh, you're also in a bank. Oh, you also use SCOM. Oh, you've also had exactly the same problems I've had. So, like, often you can go there and get a lot of information, a lot of sort of insight that you weren't expecting. So it's valuable even if you don't just have a particular problem. So if you're going to a conference and there is this kind of session, I definitely recommend going to one.
And so we did our bit there. So if you've been to a conference before where Squared Up have been sponsoring, then hopefully you will have come along to one of our famous whiskey tasting sessions. So we thought we'd hit the road and come out to the US with the whiskey tasting formula, and that went down very well. Unfortunately, not some tasty Scotch whiskies, but some more local brands in the US here. But that was really successful. So we had a really great crowd there, and sort of really there was discussion around a number of different topics. A couple of things we had to share, which hopefully we'll be sort of following up on in another webinar soon. So first of all, Matthew, I'll let you sort of introduce what we've done around PowerShell monitoring.
Right. So there's into the SCOM console, you can actually go and create simple monitors and simple performance and event alert collection rules using the authoring tab. And that's a great way when you're getting started. You don't want to build a whole management pack, but you have a script or a command that you want to run to enable some monitoring. But of course, that was all built in 2007. So VBScript was the scripting language of choice back then, and Microsoft haven't really done anything to update that. So these days it's still like, oh yeah, we can run a script, but can you write it for me in VB? That's just not going to happen.
We polled the room and we said, okay, so who knows PowerShell? Everyone. Who knows VBScript? A surprising number of people. And then we said, but who actually sort of wants to write in VBScript? The only reason they know VBScript is probably because they've had to at some point put something into SCOM as a custom script.
Right. So that was definitely sort of a crowd here. Well, actually, they're probably a bit unusual compared to most sort of application teams. So Way a Microsoft employee a PFE has created a sample management pack where he was like, well, actually, we can enable PowerShell-based templates as well. But he did this really sort of as a sample, put it out there to the community, and all credit to him for doing that. But because it was just a sort of sample, there's a 2-state PowerShell monitor in it, and that's it. So we've then taken that further and asked his permission. He said, yep, sure, you can expand on that. So what we've done is we've expanded that with a 3-state PowerShell monitor, but also PowerShell versions of all the performance and event collection rules, the timed rules that you might want to run as well. So now, when you're using that management pack and you go to the authoring tab and you want to create something, if you can say to your app team, hey, do you have a script that you run to check the health of this, or you want to collect a metric, or you want to collect a particular event or whatever, and you have a PowerShell script does it, whatever like weird API you've got or something like that, can you get to it via PowerShell? Yes, and it's very easy to create that monitoring and put it inside SCOM.
Yep.
So now, like as long as you've got a script that can do it, you can start enabling that, and that's very common in the Linux world, right? You go to Linux admin and say, how do I monitor your server? They'll probably say, well, here's a script, it's at this location. So being able to enable that now and really sort of get up to speed quickly with a new app, where you're not going to have to go through a long management pack authoring process, you can just dunk a script in there, follow the wizard, next, finish, and your monitoring's enabled. That's really powerful. So,
and so just to be sort of super clear, so we, or you, Matthew, have developed a new management pack that adds into the SCOM console essentially PowerShell support everywhere where you'd expect it. So everywhere where you can create a new monitor, rule, or task, and where it currently prompts for a VB script, you now can enter in a PowerShell script. There's a PowerShell flavor of each one of those, and that's just, it looks native to the SCOM console. So that's a new management pack that we've developed here at Squared Up. We will be making that free, a community management pack. It will be open source. It will be uploaded onto GitHub, so everyone else can contribute to that if they want to extend that further. We demoed that in the session. That looked good.
It went down pretty well.
Went down very, very well. I'm sure everyone kind of listening will be interested in that as well. So sort of watch this space. So we have that ready. We're just sort of finalising that, ready to sort of launch that and make that available to everyone. So you'll see that in the coming weeks. So that went down very well. We actually discussed a few other ideas for sort of community projects broadly to really invigorate SCOM, to really kind of modernise it. We're not seeing sort of too much coming out of Microsoft, although hopefully that will sort of change over the next few months. But we sort of threw out some ideas around what we could do there as a community, and that went down really well. So hopefully you'll see some projects coming out of there, those ideas as well.
You discussed a few things that like in the product that aren't available yet publicly, so that went down very well as well.
I was going to also just give a shout out to Sean Williams from Purdue University, one of our customers. He just gave an absolutely astonishing demo of Squared Up running live in his environment, so it's kind of a really amazing thing to see, and to share to other customers, which is someone who's sort of prepared to VPN back into their lab, fire up Squared Up, and then he talked us through monitoring an application called Blackboard that's sort of critical to the university. It sort of pushes out all of the workflows and sort of documents for students. So he just kind of talked us through monitoring that end-to-end, F5 monitoring, hypervisor monitoring, all kind of pieced together in some beautiful perspectives and dashboards. His environment was absolutely flying. He's like having like nearly 2,000 servers. And Squared Up was fast, so that was really great to see, and he sort of shared that with everyone in the room, which was great, and got a lot of kind of conversations going around that.
And what I loved was that he didn't just share like the technology, like this is how I created like these dashboards. He also talked about the sort of the process and setting at Purdue as well. So like, okay, well, this is the challenge we were having. This is what my boss was telling me. He looked into like, okay, I polled people, and this is what we wanted to see and how we'd failed before. So I think he really sold that whole sort of journey about like follow this sort of framework and you can get there.
And really good examples of the URL monitoring, so the web application availability monitoring in SCOM, so how we set that up against that web application and put together specific dashboards and perspectives, so that anyone who's interested in just the availability and performance of the application has a really dedicated view. So that's really awesome. And of course that application was entirely running on a non-Windows platform, right? So it's kind of Linux and so on. And all looking really, really good. So we will hopefully try and get Sean to share that more widely with all of our customers.
In the meantime, though, if you can't wait, Sean, on our coffee break recording, so go back to the start of this sort of, we talked about the coffee break. Sean was on the end of that.
With the screenshots.
And he had some screenshots, so he kind of gave a bit of a flavour of what he's talking about. So if you sort of love what Richard was saying and can't wait for us to sort of publicise that later on, go back and check out the coffee break recording, and you can sort of see what he was doing in action there.
Great. So as Matthew said, unfortunately the sessions here at MMS aren't being recorded, so it really is one of those events you have to come along to. This is the first time we've come along to it. We've been very impressed. We'll be back next year, hopefully. What we'll try to do for people who've sort of missed out coming to the conference this year is we'll try to sort of maybe wrap this up in some blogs, just with some relevant links. So even though you weren't able to make it to the conference, hopefully you can still sort of share in some of the useful content. I'm sure a lot of those people who are speaking have blogs and will be putting stuff up on their blogs. So we'll try and collate that together into one place for everyone. We're halfway through the conference, so another 2 days. And again, like Wednesday, Thursday, it's not like it tails off. It's not like people drift off early. There's still some cracking content to come from Brian Wren around management solutions in OMS, and some various other things. So we'll be going on to those and hopefully recording another sort of brief coffee break top-up later in the week, and we'll sort of cover off everything else that's happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention was if you were on a coffee break yesterday, we did actually give away a piece of Lego as well. So definitely encourage you to come along to these things live in the future, because everyone who was on that yesterday had a shot at winning it, and like 12, 15 people did the survey. So that's actually pretty good odds. So it's definitely worth your time coming along.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Bye.